I want to go back to what you said about black men being very comfortable with matriarchy, and I agree with that because, you know, black households are often led by a grandmother, black grandmother or black mother. However, 55% of Latino men voted for Trump. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think that economically, they were looking at things. First of all, you've got, in this country, you've got Cubans, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Colombians, et cetera, et cetera. And if you talk to the Hispanic community, depending on who you're talking to, they think differently. The Cubans think differently than the Dominicans. The Dominicans think different than Colombians. To some, the economy was a priority. To some, believe it or not, it was the border. You had some folks within the Hispanic populace that were encouraging the borders to be closed.
They want to pull the.
But here's why that's so imperative. It's so important. Because we're not Latinos. They're telling you that's what we want. We had to stay online. We had to be online in order to get in. Who are you to bypass the line? And one of my friends, I remember he used this analogy, and I never forget this as long as I live. He said, you like Six Flags, you go to Great Adventures? I said, I have. He said, sure. Disney World? Sure, I have. Of course I have. He said, so you stand in line, Take about 2 hours to get on some of these rides because they're that popular. He said, and right before it's time for you to get on that line, somebody jumped in front of you. What you gonna do? And he said that kind of mentality is how you have folks within the Latino, within the Hispanic community, some of them, not all, but some of them who view immigration that way. So again, when you think about the economics, when you think about immigration, those two things are what I have found has influenced the Hispanic vote one way or the other.
I know you guys understand everything that Stephen A. just said. And I want to draw a line right here because what just happened was very dynamic. They talked about the matriarchy, basically saying that black men and Latino men should be more loyal to women. What Stephen A. is trying to school them on right now is this. The black and Latino vote in terms of men had nothing to do with identity politics. So I'm very curious to hear what their response is gonna be, knowing that he's saying this had nothing to do with men's loyalty to women, the matriarchy, the patriarchy. This had everything to do with policies that these men don't like, that they feel is detrimental to them and their family and is unfair based off what they had to do in order to build their self up in this country. I'm very curious to see what these ladies have to say on The View.
The assault on Puerto Rico, calling it a garbage island, didn't really affect
I think it didn't matter as much as in Allentown and in Philadelphia, but like you said, I'm Puerto Rican, right? So the Hispanic community is not a monolith. I agree with you. And a lot of, I think, people that are of Hispanic origin from, let's say, South America or Central America, they're willing to close the door behind them instead of letting somebody else in.
The other important thing to recognize is that...
And that's not what Stephen A. said. He didn't say they was willing to close the door. He said that they're letting them know, I had to go through this to get in America, so I'm not okay with you not having to go through that to come to America. That's what he said, not closing the door. This is what I mean about how they twist up the words and miss out on the lesson. Stephen A. just schooled them, but the problem with The View is no matter what you say, they try to like jump to something else or jump to another thing like Puerto Rico and a trash island. Trump didn't even say that. It was somebody at his rally that said that, okay? Trump didn't say that. And I don't know if Trump had a conversation with this guy afterwards, like, yo, why would you do that? But at the end of the day, that's not something that came out of Trump's mouth.
Yes, and I've said this often. When we look at the economy, I remember when Biden came into the office, he inherited about 1.5% inflation. It ballooned to about 9.1% before it ultimately came down to where it is now, right? That doesn't mean anything to minorities. The percentage in inflation, and here's the percentage. Nah. How much does gas cost? How much does the groceries cost, okay? How much does rent cost? How much does my mortgage cost? That's what folks pay attention to, what's actually in their wallet. And I often hearken to the...
Yo, that's how everybody think. As I've been on my journey of learning about building wealth, one of the main things that they talk about in all of these different books is how rich people pay attention to every dollar. The reason why a lot of people are, poor or whatever the case may be. Listen, what Stephen A is schooling them about is absolutely right. But he's schooling them to a fact that everybody thinks about when they think about money. Nobody, you talking about inflation this and inflation that. That's how everybody think. That should be common sense. I'm going to the store today, bread is $5. Now, if I was making $150,000 and you told me bread was $5, it would be nothing. But if I'm still making $30,000 and bread is $5, then now I'm paying attention because it's just, that's how everybody thinks, right? That's just common sense.
The sport of baseball in this regard, when you had people looking at numbers in baseball and they say, how come the black representation, how come the numbers are not larger? Well, historically, black folks don't trust the system. So if you can go into the NBA at the age of 19, if you got to do 2 years in college to play football before you go pro, well, in baseball, yeah, you could get drafted, but you got to go through AAA, AA, single A, that kind of thing, before you hope they bring you into the sport of baseball. Well, that's a time issue where I have to literally trust that you ultimately will see my progress and you will reward me accordingly. I don't know too many minorities that want to trust the system. And so when people speak, although you're right and righteous with your emotion and your righteous indignation, other people are saying we have the right to have righteous indignation when it comes to our pocket, or when it comes to our lifestyle, or when it comes to our environment. If we see crimes in the streets and stuff like that, we see homelessness and it's ballooned, we got a problem with that, and we don't believe this person is the answer compared to that. So what? They might have insulted a bunch of people. We don't like it, we hate it, but in the end, it's not more important than my pocketbook or my lifestyle. But you know what?
But you know what?
Uh-oh, it don't sound like she getting the lesson. But you know what? It doesn't sound good.
It doesn't mean that we should not continue to educate ourselves to how our pocketbooks got to it. And that's the problem. That's what you were talking about. That fringe thing, if you don't know why your stuff is going, do your homework. But you know what? That takes time, and it requires you to commit to do that work to figure it out.
And
they're not going to do it.
Most people are not going to do that.
No. Stephen A just schooled them, and the lesson went right over their head. The position that Whoopi Goldberg just took is that people need to educate themselves as to why their pocketbooks look the way they look. This is what she just had the nerve to say out of her mouth. This is why the Democrats lost. I know that they think that Americans are not smart. I know they think that we don't know anything, okay? We see the war in Ukraine. We see what's going on in Israel. When COVID was happening, we seen all the bills that got passed so the government wouldn't shut down, and we seen where y'all was sending all of this money to. We see how y'all are operating. The problem is, Whoopi Goldberg, it's not that people are not educated enough. The problem is that people are more educated on the facts than ever. And so Stephen A schooled them, but then he let them off the hook. He let them off the hook because he allowed them to create a false premise that people are not educated, and that's why they believe that Trump can help them and Biden hurt them. That's not why people believe that, Whoopi. People believe that because they're looking at the evidence. They're doing the research. They're following the money. They're looking at the Democratic cities. People been watching this thing. Like I said, they looked at where all the money was going. Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, all of these people. This movement that's going on, these people have no idea how educated people actually are. That's all I'm going to say.
I do want to ask you one thing, because some people are calling this the podcast election, the outsized weight that people like Joe Rogan had and some of these other figures. Do you think it mattered, or was a mistake that Kamala Harris didn't go on his podcast?
I think it was a huge mistake for her not to go on Joe Rogan. The man has over 17 million subscribers. He was going to have a say. He refused to endorse any candidate before he endorsed RFK Jr. Okay, we understand that. And when you know that Trump is going to do it, I really, really believed wholeheartedly that wherever Trump went, she should have gone. She should have been right on them saying, I'm not going anywhere. I'm right up your you know what. Let's get it on. She should have done that. But I don't blame her. I blame the people that were running her campaign. The Democrats tend to do this from time to time. You know, Joe Biden wanted to run in 2016. You said it's Hillary's turn, okay? And then in 2020, it was Biden's turn, particularly after he was successful in South Carolina because Representative Clyburn got involved, et cetera, et cetera. The Democrats, I believe, make the mistake of trying to tell us whose time it is, as opposed to listening to the American people tell them, this is who we want. In 2008, Barack Obama elevated. It was supposed to be Hillary's turn.
Yeah.
American people on the left said, damn that. It's him. We want him. And as a result, he was a two-term president. And if you're a liberal, you absolutely positively loved Barack Obama. And he's one of the most popular presidents of all time because the people decided they wanted him, not the party.
Yeah.
And that's
You know, in a great world, that would always be the case.
Yeah.
Yes, in a democratic world. Once again, he just schooled these ladies on what the problem is with their party, is that it's a dictatorship. They talking about democracy. Every time you turn around, they talking about democracy. In their own Democratic Party, they don't even go by the Democratic rule, which is whatever the majority of the people want. Nobody picked Kamala Harris. The Democratic Party picked her and put her in front of us, and we knew that that was their play back when Biden first became the president anyways. So it was no surprise that they was going to try to make her the president. Biden said that he was a transitory president, so we knew that he might not even be able to stay in office for that long. So it was all set up. It was all very contrived. People saw through it, and they didn't take it. And so once again, Stephen A. is schooling these ladies on why it is the Democratic Party is missing the mark. Because you guys are saying that you're the Democratic Party, and you don't even allow the people that's running for president to be elected by the people for your party.
But whenever there's money involved,
Well, it's our obligation to make the world great.
well, that's what I say.
Have that influence, have that charisma.
That's
Don't
right.
be bland, don't be boring. Go
That's
out there
right.
and get it on.
Don't be bland, don't be boring like The View. Listen, ultimately, I think Stephen A. schooled them. I think that he said some good things. He let them off the hook a little bit with the whole people not educated on the facts. But, you know, but the points that he made were spot on. But based off their response to Stephen A.'s comments, I don't think a lot of what he said actually sunk in their minds. Anywho's, man, let me know what y'all think in the comment section. And if you stayed this long, man, I know you enjoyed the content. So click the link below. I have another video similar to this one, and I'll see y'all over there. Peace.